Faces.
Greetings.
Greetings. How you doing, Melody?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, you're always great.
I try.
You try. And Kathy, how are you?
Doing good. Good to be here.
I was on that other call real briefly. I saw you were on that other one this morning or this afternoon too.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. And Mr. Sean,
How's it going?
good, good, good.
Good.
All right. Let's see. We'll have more people popping on. I know a bunch of people said they're coming, but you guys know, I try to run this thing like, okay, start on time, but no matter what you do, and that's okay. That's okay. It's just the way it is. Just the way it is. All right. Well, now they're coming on. Yeah, 3 o'clock. All right. Well, I am recording. Just as a reminder, all of these are recorded. We can send them out to everybody that's in part of the ASC. But at 3 o'clock, we'll get started. This is, let's see, sorry, all these notes coming at the same time. So this is for those of you who have been around a while, for those of you who are new, just a refresher, this is our once a month bring in a speaker and have them talk a little bit about their journey, where they're from, how they got to where are they now, what they've learned along the way, and most of it just really Q&A. So welcome Eric Termuende, and I'll introduce Eric a little bit. I'll ask him a few questions, and then we'll just open it up. So be prepared to ask your questions. This is an opportunity for those of you who are familiar with Eric. You know that this is a great opportunity to kind of ask somebody who's been doing this a while and is well established and well respected. If you don't know that, now I just told you, so now you know. So have your questions ready to roll on that deal. I'm removing certain note takers here, which is interesting. Okay, blah, blah, blah. This is where Eric says, okay, have somebody else run this stuff, right? All right.
This is great. I'm excited for the chat. Steve, where are you today?
Yeah, so I am in St. Cloud, Minnesota. It's kind of a sort of a surprise thing. Yeah, Melody, I know you're familiar with that area too. Like, yeah, kind of an unexpected travel day, but here we are nonetheless. So that's where I am. Um, yeah, let me introduce Eric, and then we'll kind of get to the good stuff because nobody wants to hear me rambling. But Eric, I'll let you tell a little bit of your story. But the best I know about Eric is he's from Canada, started speaking at a young age, has sort of progressed through his career, become an expert in the future of work, and now that's where he spends his time talking a bit about that. Eric and I work a little bit together on some coaching things. So Lisa Even, some of you know Lisa. Lisa said, I was telling her a little bit about, oh, I'm just struggling. I can't crack the nut on this brand thing that I want to do. And she's like, you need to talk to Eric. And so talk to Eric. I'm like, yeah, you're right, Lisa. I needed to talk to Eric. So we've been working a bit on this new talk that I've been developing, and it is absolute. He's an absolute genius. So with that, why don't I just turn it over to Eric? Why don't you just tell a little bit about your story, kind of where are you now, how'd you get there, and just kind of give us an overview of who you are.
Awesome. Well, listen, great to see everyone. Steve, thanks for the opportunities today. I don't know. I won't talk for too long. I want to be able to be as of much help as I possibly can. I started my speaking journey actually 10 years ago last week. I got the notification on sort of like one of those social media memories. And since then, I think we've done about 550 events, pretty industry agnostic. Actually, what I will say is one of our least favorite questions we get all the time is like, who's your perfect audience? And what you love to say is like, oh, my perfect audience is everyone. But then, everyone like rolls your eyes thinking you have no idea what you're talking about. But when I look back, I save all my name tags. I've got some on the wall behind me. I've got like this year's stack of them here. And I look back as like school districts and credit unions and landscaping and credit unions and banks. And, I found a better way to answer that question. If someone asked me who's my perfect audience, I would tell them my perfect audience is a group of people who is looking to build a team that can navigate the future of work effectively. And that allows me to sort of penetrate that question that we hate to answer so much into one that's now applicable to pretty much anyone who wants to book a leadership speaker that is sort of leaning into the future of work. So I started my career, like I said, about 10 years ago. I was speaking about millennials in the workplace. It was very fitting. I was 23 years old. Some people didn't want to hear that sort of generational expert who was maybe 50 or 60 years old. They wanted that young, like, what does the kid think about what these avocado toast loving generation wants in the workplace? And so we talked a little bit about that. That was on the back of some of the consulting we did. The short story there is we built a cultural diagnostic tool that quantified workplace culture, and we would run that across entire industry associations. So let's just say insurance or manufacturing or forestry. Those are three of the clients that we had. We surveyed thousands of their employees and put numbers behind the employee experience. So let's just use accounting, for example. From the outside looking in, KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, EY, they all look pretty much the same. But when you understand the cultural nuances, they're actually quite differentiated from a cultural perspective. And we could give our client base the numbers and the stories to tell a better story to attract and retain talent. I wrote my book in 2017 about rethinking work and attracting and retaining talent, and have been speaking all over for the past 10 years. My update this year is that I'm a new dad for the first time, which I'm very excited about. So thank you for that. I've gone down from about 80 events a year down to 40, 45 this year, and made some room for coaching and helping other folks realize their speaking dreams along the way. I've been pretty lucky over the past little while. Still get to do it at an amount that I like to, and now help others get there too. So that's the short story. I'm really grateful for everyone being here today and happy to help however I can.
Well, let me ask you just a few questions, and we'll just open it up. I mean, the
Let's do
first
it.
one, just kind of the keys to success. I mean, I know there's a lot, but for you, what do you think really drove it? Because you're at a place now where you're very in demand. You're doing the big stages.
Mhm.
You're still growing forward. But why do you think? Is it just the universe sort of zapping you and saying, "I guess you're the chosen one," or what do you think you've done that's actually propelled you in this direction?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an element of that, of luck, of timing, of coaching and of mentorship. I take a small piece of credit for the success that I've had. I almost feel like I'm the vehicle of a series of other people's coaching and mentorship and guidance along the way.
Hmm.
One of the names that I'll just name drop that's been like a big brother to me is Josh Linkner. He's been just like wonderful, and has been. He kind of took me under his wing years ago, and so I'm really grateful for that. But look, I mean, there are 100,000 of us trying to do this thing. Let's just talk about numbers real quick. Speaking is about a $4 billion industry every year. There's about 250,000 events that happen every year in America. The average speaking fee of those events, when you include the Clintons and Magic Johnson and Barack Obama, but also like the Rotary pancake breakfasts and everything else, that like the average is like $17,000 a keynote. And there's about 100,000 of us speakers trying to do this thing. I try to think of it as sort of black and white as possible. There are only so many things we can speak about as speakers. You can speak about sales, economics, future, creativity, innovation, change. I'll put those in a bucket. Leadership, motivation. I don't think there's another big bucket, really. I think everything else that we all speak about on this call fits under one of those categories. Okay, so say it's leadership. I would consider myself leadership. Um, what is it about leadership that differentiates me from the other leadership speakers? So, um, if someone says, "Oh, I speak about leadership," I would say, "Great. So do 25,000 other people. What is it about leadership that you speak about that allows me to focus on you specifically rather than any of the other 24,000 folks?" And I would say for me personally, well, I help lead a team that can navigate the future of work. That's just the line that I've gone with. It's been where I've been at for about 24 months now. I'm happy with it. It's a differentiated element of leadership that focuses on a problem that my client needs me to have solved. So, some people want to speak about joy, or they want to speak about engagement or culture, all of which are fine. I'm fine with whatever anyone wants to speak about. But if you say that you speak about those things, you're solving a problem that the client hasn't identified they needed to have solved. And so it's harder to sell a solution to a problem that organizations don't know they have. So when I'm coming in to talk about my differentiated element of leadership, I'm talking about solving a problem that a client can potentially relate to. Let's just run through a quick example, Steve. I'm going to use you as an example because you brought me in. If you were like, Coca-Cola has always been my sort of dream company. I was really grateful to speak for Coca-Cola 3 weeks ago, and it was a wonderful experience. They gave a raving testimonial. It was great. So I always use them not because I'm particularly fond of sodas or Coca-Cola, but I figure if I can nail Coca-Cola's problem, I can probably nail 999 of the Fortune 1000's problems too, because they're all pretty much the same. No slight or disrespect to anyone. They were just corporate problems that we're trying to solve. if I were to say, hey, Steve, SVP at Coca-Cola, that old way of leadership, it's not going to serve you moving forward. That stand in command, point and shoot, that old antiquated breathing down each other's necks, check in, check out, cubicle to corner office, that style of leadership, that's not going to get you to where you need to go in 2030 and beyond. I'm going to come teach you a better way to do that. On the outset, you think that that's a not bad approach because that's pretty true. But what Coca-Cola would say is, good one. We are Coca-Cola. Respectfully, we're one of the best companies on the planet and have been for 100 years. We don't subscribe to that old style of leadership. We do things a little bit better around here. So while I intuitively think you're right across the country, we don't have that problem. Move on. And then you realize that every company you pitch that to says the exact same thing because you're right, except for us. We're perfect. So I would take a different approach. I would say, Steve, those category leading best practices that got Coca-Cola to be the juggernaut that it is today, those are not the same skills, behaviors, and requirements needed for your leaders to thrive in 2030 and beyond. And what I've done is I've surveyed X number of people, worked with these number of people, and found that there's actually a blueprint that will help you lead in a world of work that we have yet to discover. And what I'd love to do is to teach you that over 60 minutes and give your team a blueprint to navigate this future of work. Is that more appealing? And of course, the answer is like yes, every time, because now instead of solving a problem that Coca-Cola is not going to identify to have, I'm giving them an aspirational solution that I want them to run towards, and I can take them there. Because if people like burnout is another like massive topic, and there's nothing wrong with burnout. Burnout is a wonderful topic. The problem is no one likes to admit that their people are burnt out because if they admit that their people are burned out, it's typically a leadership problem, and nobody wants to admit to have a leadership problem. And so that's why I think resilience or something has almost taken over this idea of burnout because resilience is like how do you mitigate burnout in the first place, which is probably some of the same characteristics as dealing with burnout, but now, saying we're going to get ahead of burnout because we're that good level, we're those good leaders who can help with those things. So, Steve, this has been a really long-winded answer, but I would say two things. Number one, you have to differentiate under the big bucket that we're talking about. And number two, we can't assume that there's a problem we're solving unless the client that we're talking to admits to having that problem. So I'm looking at something a little bit more aspirational. I want to take them on a positive journey that teaches them something, teaches them how to do something they didn't know how to do before. One other note is that if you do want to talk about solving a problem, it shouldn't be a problem that leadership is responsible for. So one of my favorite problems that I like to solve is for like uncertainty and rapid change and technological evolution because it's nobody's fault. Like if we're victim to these things, that's totally fine. Like the world is changing faster than it ever has before and a fraction of the speed that it will in the years to come. And leaders today are often not equipped to deal with the things that they don't know are coming. And what I'm here to do is to tell you, I've seen around the corner. I've worked with those category leading companies and leaders, and I can teach you exactly how to do that too. Now all of a sudden there's a little bit of buzz and excitement in the air, and they're a little bit more interested.
Well, it's one of the things that, you and I worked on, and it was such an interesting process because you would ask me the questions like that, and I'd answer, and you'd be like, no, they're gonna, you're accusing them, you're doing this. It was frustrating, but in such a positive way. And that was one of the big things I took away is, if we can make our problem an external problem that's not placing blame on them,
Yep.
now they'll listen. And I think, as I've kind of worked with that's super true. So you ingrained that in my head. And by the way, working with Eric, it's like this, like he just comes up with these things like, and like, how? Like, thank God we recorded this so I could like go back and do that. But let me ask you, I'm going to ask you one more kind of a random question, then we'll get to Q&A. And obviously this crew knows that I have a million questions. So if you guys don't have questions, that's okay. I'll jump in there. But the one question I want to ask you before we kind of open it up is just tell us about an embarrassing moment or something where it just didn't go right, or obviously along this journey of
Which one?
10 years of success, there has to be. I'm putting a flyer out here that even for you, there has to be a moment. Like, what's like your most embarrassing moment or whatever?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, so many. I remember early days. I was just getting started, and one of the realizations, the light bulbs that went off, that was a real turning point for me. There were a few turning points. Number one, I stopped trying to be the smartest person in the room and started trying to be the most relatable. This is before that moment. Number two, I stopped saying as many numbers as I possibly could and started sharing stories. And number three, I actually built a structure of a keynote that made sense. And I got to tell everyone on the call, the structure very simply is tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them again. It's almost like we're in grade 5. But structurally, if it's got a start and a hypothesis, and then you teach them a framework, and then you recap it again, nobody complains about that because they can follow it. They're hearing you for the first time and it makes sense. However, before, when I was much younger, this was like 9 years ago, and I thought the more data and facts I could throw at people, the better and smarter it would sound. I threw a bad number out there. And it was for a senior forestry conference. The average age was like 87, it felt like 98.5% men. And I'm out there just like shivering in my boots, doing the best I can. But I said a poor number, like that was wrong. And someone called me out from the front row, said that number is bullshit in front of, 600 people. Um, and I'm 4 minutes into this talk. He happened to be right, so it was really embarrassing. It got me to really triple and quadruple check everything. But, he was right. Other people knew he was right. And I'm 4 out of 60 minutes into this talk, and there's no getting the room back, after this. So I just limped through it and found my way out the other end. Safe to say I haven't worked with that client again, but it was a learning experience nonetheless.
How did you handle it in the moment? Did you sort of like just brush it off and know in your heart that it was wrong?
I
Or did you
told him,
engage? Yeah.
I told him, I was like, look, I really appreciate you raising your hand. Maybe not necessarily
I
in that
really
way.
appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks.
But, but, the sentiment that I'm trying to get across right now is this.
Mm.
And while you may be right about the number, what I want folks to understand is that the world we're living in today is, moving faster than it ever has before. And so, and that's true too. The sentiment of the number. I mean, look, why do we say numbers and data in the first place? It's trying to prove a point that we're trying to make, to say like, wow, oh, the data, the research says that too. I better pay
Mm.
attention. So, I always go back to like, what am I sharing that number? Why am I sharing that in the first place? And so I tried to save it by sharing that.
Mhm.
But I mean, look, another one, a squirrel was running around in the front row of 1,200 people, and the
Like
MC,
literally a squirrel?
like
Like,
literally a squirrel, it
okay.
was in the basement of the Toronto Convention Center. And the MC, because we didn't know what to do, it was right next to the loading bay, but he got two of the buffet lids, the silver lids, and started clanking them and chased it out the back of the room. I followed virtually in the pandemic. I followed, I'm going to try and make a long story short, but right before me was a surprise on the agenda, and it was listed for 15 minutes, and the organizer wouldn't tell me what it was. But right before my keynote, they revealed that the surprise was going to be a pet beauty pageant, and there were 400 people online, and this is middle of the pandemic, and so everyone went and got like Snoopy and Whiskers and their parakeet and whatever, and showed them on Zoom, and they had a panel of judges that gave away a $500 PetSmart gift card. I got to tell you, I followed like presidents and prime ministers and all sorts of people. That was the hardest act I've ever had to follow because Snoopy was so cute. It ran 45 minutes longer, which meant my 60-minute keynote. They said, "Can you get us back down to on time? Can you just go for 20 minutes?" Sure, sure.
I
Yeah.
still get paid, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Check cleared for sure. Yeah. Check cleared.
that's hilarious. Well,
Yeah.
okay, all right, guys. What questions do y'all have? Either throw them in the chat or just open up your mic and let them have it. What's on your mind? Yeah, Karen, you're muted right now, Karen.
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, Eric. Thanks so much for sharing your story. So I'm curious of the trajectory. At
Hmm.
what point did you, in the 10 years,
Yeah.
get to where you wanted to be, where you said, oh my gosh, like now I'm thriving? And I'm curious if it happened incrementally or if it was like you had that one call that just changed everything, or
Hmm.
maybe it's neither of those options.
The interesting thing, Karen, is that the clock resets January 1st every year, right? So if I made it last year, that doesn't necessarily imply that I'm going to make it this year. I mean, there's some general understanding based on bookings for the year ahead and things like that, that it's going to be fine. But I think for better or worse, we all have a little bit of a scarcity mindset, thinking like, great, maybe we had an awesome year this year, but there's nothing promising that next year is going to be great either. I would say though that the best measure of success is when the spin rate goes up. So if you do a great event, and you've got 30 people in the audience reaching out and say, can we have you at our event next year? That's probably the best measure of success. And I would say again, the three breakthrough moments in the career were number one, when I stopped trying to be smart, number two, when I started telling stories, and number three, when I had a structure that really made sense for the audience. Um, and uh, now I'm pretty confident. Like last week, I had an event in Miami, and it was supposed to be for 60 minutes, and they said, "Do you mind going for 90?" We had a cancellation, and the answer is sure, no problem. Because when I think we do these enough, I've built stories in my keynotes that can be told in 5 minutes, that in 10 minutes, or in 15. You don't even have to change the number of slides. You just add the number of details or compress the number of details. Like if the senator that's before us goes on, or the governor that's going on in the tourism conference that we're speaking at goes for 40 minutes instead of 20, I can still tell those same stories and shrink them. So for me, my keynote has never been about memorizing the content. It's about deeply understanding the content and treating them like puzzle pieces. So I've got, let me just say this, because I think this really helps, Karen. I treat my keynote like a set list. So say Coldplay is going to, St. Paul, Minneapolis, um, and and they play their set at Target Field or wherever it is. Then they come to Vancouver to BC Place. They're going to play their greatest hits for sure, but they're going to swap out songs that really make sense depending on where the audience is and what the mood is and everything else. But also they're continuing to add new albums and new songs and new everything. I consider like my body of work to be almost like this set list, and I've got stories in my back pocket that if I need to pull them out, they're always there. But I think a pitfall that we often fall into is that we try and really memorize every line and pause and word of our talk without understanding that we can really get a lot of this set list when we treat it as such.
And just as a follow-up to Karen's question too, like, so was there an inflection point then? Like, do you feel like you just kind of, you started doing this thing at 23 and like, boom, you're getting this stuff? Or were you grinding for a while? Was there a point where it's like, okay, now you've got kind of pushing the millstone for a while now, like now there's an inflection point when all
Yeah.
of a sudden like, oh, wait, this is actually going to work.
Let's have an honest conversation about this ridiculous business that we're in for a second. And it's really frustrating, and I want to tell you why. Let's just say it's November 24th today, and you have an event next week, or I have an event next week, and I'm just getting started. Okay, so I crush it. Like things were great. And I have 15 people in that audience, 15 that were like, Eric, that was good. Can you come speak at our event next year? And I say, yes, 2026 is going to be the best year ever. I can't wait. Only to find out that four of those 15 never reached out again. Six of those 15 were never the right decision makers in the first place. Another three of them didn't have budget. One of them had already chosen their speaker for next year. And the one that is able to book me, their conference isn't until October 10th. Are you kidding me? So I nailed this event next week. And the only thing that's going to come from it in the next 11 months is one event in Pensacola, Florida, that I'm going to have to go down to. Nothing wrong with Pensacola. We're going to go down to Pensacola in October of next year. And now what am I going to do for the next 10 months? I'm thinking, I gotta improve. I gotta make everything better. Like, you could have had a wicked keynote. You could also have had an event for a corporate team, that no matter what is not going to hire you back again because their policy is now we bring in a new speaker every year. So, you do that and you just do super well. And then that one event in October leads to three events in 2027, which lead to six events in 2028, which lead to 12 events in 2029. Now it's taken what 4 years to get 15 events on the books. And that has nothing to do with the quality of your content. There's nothing to do with who you are and what your brand is and what your tagline is. It has nothing to do with any of that. That's just the nature of the business. And so while those events start to snowball, which they will, I believe in that, we still have to sell and we still have to work. And so, you know, I my business was like zero, 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 double, 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 double after that because the snowball just started to gain a little momentum.
Thanks for sharing that. Catherine has her hand up.
Catherine, then we'll go to Tom.
Hi. Sorry, I
Hi.
can't bring my camera any lower. That's why I look so small.
No problem.
But thanks so much, Eric. I actually, my question spins off of what you were just talking about, but also ties in the topics that you were talking about at the beginning, basically, like how
Hmm.
do you construct a topic that someone's going to grab at? Um, the first question is really how do you even get to a decision maker, given that, like within a company, it's probably a
Hmm.
different person
Hmm.
in each and every company. So maybe it's their decision maker for a conference or decision maker for bringing someone on site to do a workshop. Because oftentimes what I find myself in is, I've met a really lovely individual that works for a company and they say, "Oh, I think it'd be fantastic to have you do a workshop for us."
Hmm.
And what happens more often than not is they're trying to advocate on my behalf, like be that middle person because I can't get to whoever they would get to
Yep.
even pitch me as an option. So
Mhm.
that seems to be a struggle point to like move it beyond the person that I happen to know within the company where it would actually grow legs to turn into an opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, so one of my favorite hacks, I would say, and this is so funny that we speakers do that because every time we finish an event, what's the first thing we do is we go on LinkedIn and we say, "Oh my gosh, Steve Fredlund was the best organizer I've ever had the pleasure of working with. I was just in, wherever I was, Des Moines last week, and loved his event." Like I've connected with every speaker in my fee range, and every time they post about the successful event they had last week and name drop the meeting planner, guess who's the first person I'm connecting with? And that doesn't mean I'm going to like send them a bunch of emails in their inbox or I'm not reaching them out to them in any way, shape, or form. But if I know who that person is, and then I'm starting to create content and articles and videos and all sorts of things, like I found that lots of people have actually reached out from LinkedIn, and I haven't done anything other than connect with them based on the fact that someone I knew spoke for them last year or the year before. The other thing that I've done is built like with a bunch of my speaker pals, I've got a referral network built in. So we do 20%. That's just what we've decided. Some people do 10, some people do 0. But I get a handful of business every year from, my friends.
Mhm.
And I give it away as well. It works out really well. The other thing that I would say, and something like that just happened last week for us, is someone really loved the keynote, wasn't the decision maker, and the first question we asked is like, would you mind connecting us with the person who is in charge of assigning speakers for their agenda or your agenda next year? We'd love to have a quick chat. And then they send this glowing review of what they just heard based on the work that you did, and then they kind of get to make the decision from there. I would say that the close rate on something like that isn't super high because people love to see you before making a decision like that. But if you've got enough lines in the water, you're bound to catch a fish.
Mhm. Thank you.
Cool.
All right,
Let's go to
we'll go
Tom.
Tom, and then Jack.
Yeah, first, thanks, Steve. This is great. I've been wanting to come to one of these. I'm not mostly a speaker. I'm based in Minnesota. I'm mostly a trainer and a
Okay.
coach. I really like training more than speaking, but I do a fair amount of speaking. And I'm curious because I run my own small business. How do you market, Eric? And it seems like you've really done super well. I'm so curious because the marketing is the painful part for me. I'm a former Catholic priest, and when I was a priest 28 years ago, you don't have to market.
Mm,
People just come to you. It's 24/7. And now I spend more time some months than I would admit marketing. And the whole agent thing, I never got to that level, never tried for that. But, I'm probably doing 5 to 10 keynotes a year and mostly coaching and training in the construction world. So I loved your story because I thought it was the construction guys that were the worst about the follow up and the 15, the guys who never, I mean, I've had some scenes like that
sure.
where 0 of the 10 followed up.
Yeah.
I'm curious about marketing because that's probably my pain point.
So in my
Thank you.
experience, appreciate the question. In my experience, so I think in the last, okay, let's just, I was starting to prepare to be a dad last January. We were started like, having these conversations. And Since then, I think I've worked with about 185 people. And the number of those 185 people who let's just all classify as like thought leaders, okay? Lead thought, if I'm being totally honest, is very small, very small. So many of us have these incredible ideas, these incredible frameworks, are brilliant in our own way, and forget to tell the world. You know what I mean? So we don't write articles, we don't record videos, we don't have any samples of thought, and that doesn't mean that it's not there. But I'm just as guilty of this as anyone else. I'm just praying that with my website looking really good, that somebody's going to pick up the phone and somehow miraculously find me. And in my experience, that's just not the case. And so I would start a newsletter. I mean, like LinkedIn has them. Substack is super easy. And what I do when I have folks download the resources from my keynote, they're automatically, they're notified of it, but they're added to the newsletter. And in a few years, I've built it to be almost 10,000 people now. And so, like marketing, I don't know. Like I'm not a AdWords like SEO kind of guy, but if we build our audience one person at a time and give them referable thought leadership, I think that's the best way to do it.
Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I do all that I do all that. And I sometimes think that I probably have not reached deeply enough into my expertise, Eric, and I think that's a good comment, what you just said there, that I need to be more bold about the insight I have into what makes a difference in the world and be more confident in that. So it's really good. Thank
Are
you.
you
And
telling stories, Tom, or are you
yes,
giving ideas?
always telling stories and ideas too, but I'm always telling stories.
The
Uh,
framework that I love, just to share it with folks, is to state a declaration, an idea, the thing that you
mhm.
believe, or what is this newsletter all about? Here's the idea, prove it with a story, back it up with a data point that proves the story isn't anomalous, and then give the audience an action so they can have the same success that the character in the story did that states what was proven to be true in the declaration that you made at the start. I'm not sure if that got a
That's
little
good.
wordy.
That's
What's
good.
what's the idea? Prove it with a story. Prove it with a data point that suggests the story wasn't anomalous, and then tell the audience member how they can do what the person in the story did so they can have the same success.
That's good. I don't think I'm doing that. Thank you. That's
It's
really
worth a
helpful.
try.
I'll
Yeah.
just share. I'll just interject one more thing too that Eric told me when we were working together. You can use this as take it for whatever you think it's worth. But I asked him. I said, "So what's the difference between speakers who are doing it or getting paid those high dollars and ones that aren't? Like, what's the difference?" He's like, "They just get out of their own way sooner." And so whatever that means, it means something for me specifically. But for you, Tom, maybe that's part of it too. Is maybe it is that really leaning into you are an expert in this thing. Get out of your own way. Let the world believe it. Show the world and just do it. And I think, maybe that's it. Maybe that's not it. But that was a
Yeah.
word of wisdom that maybe would apply here too.
That's
All right.
good, Steve.
All right. We'll move to Jack and then Rashmi and then Catherine.
All right, thanks, Steve, and thank you, Eric, for being here. Appreciate it. Um, and something that sort of hit my earballs was you talking about for the last 2 years, you said this is what you've been doing.
Sure.
So can you just give us a glimpse into what that looked like to be having success and
Hmm.
then, change? I It's sort of a thing I'm kind of going through where if I can make a baseball analogy, I feel like I'm a AAA speaker. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I get called up to the bigs, but
Yeah.
it's been a grind. And so I feel like I need to make this switch, but just let us into what that was like. Isn't that scary just to like make this leap and go another direction? Or did you
Sure.
kind of ease into it, or what did it look like?
Great question. And in talking to other peers that have done similar, I don't know, call it trajectory or number of gigs or fee range or something like that. What I tell you is that you never go to the market with something brand new. I would say that you're working into it, in your old keynotes, so that when you do get the spin and the referrals, they're already, asking for what you're wanting to deliver next. But let's talk about the progression real quick. Let's just say it's 2015. Okay. I'm talking about millennials, how to attract and retain millennials. Why? Because that's who I am. That's the work that I did. That's where I feel like I can be a subject matter expert. Okay. Then we expanded it to say, how do we attract and retain high performing teams? Because I didn't want to pigeonhole myself in a millennial conversation. And the things that you do to attract millennials is very, very much the same as attracting high performing folks. Then we were talking a little bit more about the future. How do you attract a team that can navigate the future? Then we're getting into 2020, the pandemic hit. Then we like, how do we lead? How do you attract and retain in a remote or hybrid team? Um, and then the pandemic started to die down. Then it's like, well, what's coming next? So then we're talking about the future. Then I would say like AI was like a blip. It was what do you do? And like everything's AI just for a second though. Now it's more around like human centricity, resilience. There's sort of a burnout element. But Jack, to answer your question, I would say that it is all iterative from, let's just say, where I was starting with attracting and retaining millennial talent. Like it was not a bold, massive departure to where I am now. There were probably 5 or 6, we'll call them 1-degree shifts is one of the terms I use in my keynotes, a 1-degree shift to get me to where I am today. But I would also say that I've never given, I mean, that's a lie, but I would work with the client to do it. I've never given like a 100% net new, keynote either. It's all iterative from stuff that I know has worked in the past to get a little bit closer to what they're looking for too.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Thanks, Jack. Rashmi, good to see you.
Hey, Eric. Nice to see you. I
Thanks, Sam.
actually just got to see and meet Michelle Joyce for the first time because I was at IASV. So I got to hang out with some of your folks,
Cool.
Alan and Anton, which was really fun.
Awesome.
So I have a couple of thoughts. One is just because I've gotten approached now, I'd love to understand and hear your thoughts on having a manager. Steve and I were just talking about this earlier. 2, I'm about to launch my book. So I don't remember if you have a book. You do, right? So I'd love any thoughts that you have to capitalize and monetize on the sequence of I've got a 6-month runway. So I'm really trying to be intentional. I'm publishing with Amplify, with Naren, and I don't want to, and we could potentially talk offline, but I want to be really intentional about how I market. I'm not really trying to make any lists except probably Amazon because I just don't think it's worth it. When I talk about monetizing, it's like, monetizing as I begin to sell my 2026 keynotes. And how do I do that when I don't yet have an Amazon link for them, right? So all of that, I think that would be really helpful. And the manager conversation. And then 3, I love your idea of the 1% shift. And I have a keynote that I used to give for 8 years. And after Impact 11, I kind of was like, okay, I'm pivoting. I want to move to this whole new thing because that's what people are asking me for. But interestingly, I've just been booked 3 times for what I used to do. Nice. So I'm reintroducing that, creating my whole new website page on that as well. And so I'd love some thoughts on making sure I'm not confusing to the market, obviously, especially to the bureaus that I'm working with. So if you have any feedback on that.
Okay. Let's go through one at a time. Let's go manager first. Everyone familiar with bureau manager sort of relationships?
Go ahead and give an overview because some people might not be.
Yeah.
Why don't you give that overview, Eric, from your perspective?
Yeah.
So right now I think I'm working with 50 different bureaus and 150 different agents. And I'm really grateful for every one of those partnerships and relationships. And also it sometimes can be a little overwhelming. We do have, and I'm grateful for it. We've got leads coming in almost every day. Some of them are tire kickers and some of them are very serious, which is great. And I know that I've got a very small window to be a first-time dad whose daughter is not going to daycare yet, and I wanted to be able to make sure I can take full advantage of that. And so part of me planning for this was to think it would be really nice to have someone help me with this, which of course would be a manager. Now, a manager manages a speaker and all of their bureau relationships. So any inquiry now that comes into my inbox, actually goes to Michelle's as well. So I'm aware of what's going on, but I'm kind of hands off on the whole thing. She takes 5% of any bureau gig. What does she take? She takes 10% of anything that comes directly in, and she's got some clients as well. She'll take 25% on. So Look, I'm not an EA kind of guy. I don't have anyone helping me on my team. I don't like the idea of overhead. I haven't had it since I started my speaking business. And so anytime a gig comes in, I'm happy to have a few extra percent go here or there. Um, and it's worked really well for me because Michelle is represents my brand. She represents my sales experience. There's two reasons why you really want a manager. Number one is you're too busy and you're looking for someone to help you sort of filter all of it. And that's probably the most common. That's why you see a lot of like celebrities and things. You just go through their manager because they deal with everything. The second, though, and this is happening more and more. Anyone familiar with Danielle Sweeney? She's starting her thing, which I'm pretty excited about. And you get
Yeah,
like
she's awesome.
she's awesome. Then you get like
Her assistant is my assistant. I mean, I know you said you don't
awesome,
do overhead, but it's like 15 hours a week. He helps me.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's and again, there's no whatever people decide to
Yeah.
work with is totally fine for them. But I would say that there are a lot of other managers right now who have built the trust and the reputation from the bureau community. And a manager can be really great for exposure. You know, sometimes these managers will take a few extra percent. But I'm totally fine with that. Honestly, I've had two managers now. One experience wasn't that great for me. I won't go into those details. And this one has been really great for me. And so, if that is an option that you're considering, you know, honestly, I would just have those conversations. For me, though, the one thing I would caution you or everyone on, and this is no slight to Michelle. Michelle is phenomenal at what she does, but I have lost a lot of the relationships with the bureaus that I had because I don't reach out to them in the same way that I did in the past.
Yeah.
Michelle does. And
Yeah.
so while I would have told them or updated them on something that was happening or that I, crushed it last week and the client was raving, I don't really do that anymore because Michelle does. And so I kind of let her do her thing. But I've kind of just decided that I'm letting go of control a little bit and letting someone who's better at her job than I am be good at her job so I don't have to, and it's working pretty well.
Can I ask just a follow-up before we get to the second part of that question?
Let's get so Rashmi. Yeah, let's do it. But I want to make sure we get other
Oh,
questions.
yeah. Okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Harder plus. So
Yeah,
I just
yeah, yeah.
want to
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
too. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No worries. Go ahead. I'm not
Um,
going to ask the second part. Yeah.
No, you can address those other questions, Eric. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure.
Okay, cool. Second part, book. Triple down on your marketing. That's what I would say. When I wrote my book, admittedly, I was younger and less qualified than you are. And the whole point that I was writing a book for was not to sell the book, but to tell other people that, to have other people tell the market that I knew what I was talking about. So I didn't have to. Pre-book, I was like, trust me, world, I know what I'm talking about. And post-book, Forbes or, Financial Post or, Sirius
Right.
XM or Huffington Post, like they all said it for me. And so I would say get as many articles and bylines and features, get in Fast Company, get in Inc., get in Forbes, get on Wall Street Journal or USA Today, because then you get to say Eric Termuende featured in blank, 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 blank. And that did more for my speaking career than I think writing the book did. And so do that as much as you can. My only regret is I didn't triple the spend, get on the podcast, get on everything. Even then, I don't know, podcasts, some of them are really great. Some of them are, not as great. And if you're looking to push books and get on lists, sure, every sale matters. If you're looking to boost credibility to get more stages, then I would say go for more traditional media, and really lean into it. Get on like local news, get on state news, get on national news. Like those news clips are great because like who do they put on the news? Credible leaders who know what they're talking about in this stuff. And I've used news clips. I don't use them anymore. I haven't focused on that in a while. But I use those news clips. I add my speaking reel. I added them on my website because like nothing says credible leader like someone who's talking about this stuff on the news. And all of that was because my book was coming out in a couple months, and yeah, it worked pretty well. And what was the third piece, Rashmi? Sorry.
Oh, just pivoting, but don't worry about that. I know there's other
you can
questions.
handle it.
Oh yeah, I will say no. Steve, I think we had this conversation. It's a quicker answer. I don't know if this is total garbage or not, but I ran with it. I guess there's like a psychology of a menu at a restaurant where they always price one item way higher than the rest so that it seems like everything else isn't as expensive. I've kind of done that with my stuff. Like there's one keynote that I want everyone to go buy. It's Blueprint to the Future, helping or like how to navigate the new world of work or something like that. And I really want people to book that one. So I've done that one. I've like polished it up. I'm really stoked about it. And then I've got like 5 or 6 others. I got to tell you, the bottom 3 or 4, nobody's booked for like 3 or 4 years. And frankly, I'm excited about that. I just want it to be more credible, more of a body of work for people to choose from. But I
Right.
want people to choose the one that I want them to book. So I don't think you're confusing the market by adding those other ones. I think if
Okay.
someone does want it, and I've had it too, like having someone say like, "Well, we want this one." I'm like, I haven't delivered that since 2019. Sure, yeah, let's go do it. I'll go dust off dust on the
The old
top
deck, yeah.
and deliver it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Eric.
All right.
Helpful.
Love it. Sorry for cutting you off, Rashmi.
Oh, it's fine. No
All right,
worries.
Catherine.
Awesome. So, Eric, back to your point that you made at the beginning, basically, like you want to find this when you're coming up with a topic or an idea or pitching an idea to speak on whatever
Mhm.
it is, you want it to be something that it's nobody's fault.
Yeah.
So, if how would you, just as an example, let's say um, workplace communication and
Ooh,
generally
good. I love
speaking,
these exercises.
yeah, but like generally speaking, when you hear gripes from people in their workplaces, they say it's top down, like leadership is not communicating to us or whatever they communicate to us
Uh-huh.
doesn't make any sense or it's inconsistent. Like so clearly like at least the perceived issue is that it's a top down issue, but obviously this is a problem that you have to pitch to that upper level leadership for them to even bring it into the company in the first place. So
Mhm.
how would you create, I guess, whether it's a narrative around that or pitch in a way that doesn't seem so like I'm coming to you because you're the problem and we we need to
Yeah, yeah.
deal with you.
Catherine, do you have like a model or a name for what you're talking about right now?
I have a trademark that I'm in the middle of
What
right now. Yeah.
What do you, okay, by the way, just a quick note on trademarks. I've trademarked Blueprint to the Future, but never filed for the trademark just to like have the threat of thinking that I trademarked it. So I kind of call BS on my trademark just so people are looking to protect IP. That's what I've done. Nobody's even come close to taking it, but I just thought that would be a fun thing to share. But what are you calling it right now? Unless you don't want to share, that's totally fine.
I mean, my application's already in, so
Yeah,
it's
okay.
light bulb conversations.
Cool. Okay, awesome. So I would say Steve, SVP of company that is having a really tough time communicating top down. I would say, Steve, I just want to share with you that over the past 10 years, I've worked with some of the very best, most category leading organizations. And I got to tell you, there's one thing that they all have in common, and it's the level of communication top down, side to side, and breaking down the silos. I actually call this light bulb communication. What I've done is I've built a framework that teaches high performing teams just like yours to communicate more effectively so that we can get the more out of our people because they want to, not because they feel like they have to. Is this a conversation you might be interested in having? And I found that it's very often they're like, yeah, I'm curious, what's that level of communication all about? We want to be a high performing team like the ones you've been talking to. Can you tell us a little bit more? So instead of solving a problem, make it more aspirational. Like I'm the thought leader. I've had these conversations. I know it works, and I've coined it something. I'd love to share with you a little bit more. And 9 times out of 10, people are interested in having that conversation.
Okay. I feel like that's helpful, by the way. I feel like I do pitch it in that respect, like from that angle, and probably 9 times out of 10, it's no response. But granted, it's cold outreach.
Cold outreach is
So
tough. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the message or the problem, or they don't, like you were saying earlier, they don't feel like they have a problem, or they don't care that it's a problem, or they just don't respond because they don't respond.
The other approach you could take, like we were talking about before, is you could say, leader X, the world today is moving faster than it ever has before, only a fraction of the speed that it will in the years to come. And uncertainty, we think it's uncertain now, just wait till we, get to the future, whatever that looks like. Yet, what I found in all the work that I've done is that the teams that are able to navigate this uncertainty, that are able to continue to create a high performing team, despite the world moving as fast as it is right now and will in the future, they're the ones who can communicate most effectively. I've actually built a framework that I call blah, 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 blah. But talk to the things that aren't anyone's fault that communication is directly or indirectly related to, and come in from like the side door, not necessarily the front one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
These are the kind of things that he did during our call that just sort of messed my brain. Like, how do you do that? Like in 15 seconds, he just like declares this great statement, but it's true. I think it's great. All right, Sherry, and then we'll get to Elizabeth's question as well.
Okay, thanks for everything, Eric. This is great. So everything you're saying makes complete sense. And like Steve said, you just like spew wisdom in like 10 seconds. It's just like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. So I'm hoping you can do that for my question too. So I always hear, okay, what are people waking up in the middle of the night with? What's the challenge that they have at 3 a.m. that's waking them up, right? And so then it's like, okay, well, I need to put that problem in front of them to say, oh, you're waking up because of this. Your life sucks. So let me solve it. But at the same time, I don't want it to be their fault. So I get kind of caught up in that. So how do you share something? Because what you're saying is, yeah, I mean, everyone knows, okay, the future is going to be hard. How do you make that a problem that's problematic enough that they need to do something about it now, but also not make it their fault? Does that make sense?
What do you speak about, Sherry?
So I talk about really kind of living your dash, like making your life matter,
Mhm.
using your strengths and values, understanding yourself and understanding one another. So
Okay.
I'm constantly kind of like flipping around my words and phrasing it in different ways. And I'm not being sticky enough because I kind of go back and forth between, making it too much of a problem for them. I just kind of flip around quite a bit.
So the dash, that reminds me of like Garrett Graveson talks about that, like I said, Terry, like Ben Nempton, like those are the three friends that'll kind of make the most of the life that we're living in the
Yep.
dash, you know, love them all. And what I would say is that all of them have done a really good job at making the dash related to the bottom line. You know, how does me living my full life, the very best that I can, relate to bottom line performance for the organization? And Ben will lean into mental health. Seb will lean into like connection, unlimited possibility, ripple effect. Garrett, I forget what he leans into, but my question for you is how does living the dash translate to like how can a leader take that message and create a higher performing team or create a better workplace experience that is worth investing in?
Is that a question you want me to
That's the
answer right?
question. Yeah. Yeah.
So when somebody understands what makes them unique, and
Mhm.
each person understands their own uniqueness and they understand the uniqueness of one another, they can leverage that. So people are happier, there's higher retention, less turnover. People are just better at what they do rather than focusing on the challenges and trying to improve themselves. Instead, they're focusing on what they're already good at.
I suspect you're leading with the dash when it should come as a follow. So what I would say is, and again, I'm just going to go off the top. I would say
Yeah.
what the highest performing leaders understand is that when they can understand the uniqueness of their team, you know, and the individuals that live and thrive at work every day, they're going to be the ones who can drive the most engagement, increase their level of retention, and you know, increase the satisfaction and productivity at work. At the end of the day, those leaders who can really help their team members live their dash are the ones who are going to extract the highest performance, the highest level of potential, and ultimately the best results at the end of the day.
That was amazing. You spewed brilliance. Thank
If
you.
you start with the dash, we're not hitting the leadership problem yet.
Yeah.
I don't want you to change what you're talking about at all. Just change the positioning so that you drive like take the funnel and take it down to the dash at the base of it. Don't start with it. And I think it'll be a more intuitive reach for people when they're looking to book that speaker.
Thank you. I think I flip around where I place it, and today it happened to be first, but that is fantastic. Okay, thank you.
Cool.
I'll have
All
to
right.
re-listen.
Hey, Elizabeth, do you want me to read, or do you want to come off mute and do yours?
Hey Eric, I was just wanted to come back to your analogy. You mentioned using the menu analogy of
Sure.
pricing, and I don't know if you've probably said it and just said it fast and I didn't catch it. But what did you do? Do you price the ones you don't want to do higher, the keynotes, or do you price your fave the highest?
Well, yeah, so that's where the analogy kind of falls apart, and I appreciate you saying that. Is like they're obviously all priced the same. One looks a lot sexier than the other is by design, you know. And so I make that title punchier and tighter than the other ones, and add other ones that maybe, again, if I were to talk about a millennial topic, you know, nobody's really, I mean, sure, generations are a hot topic and Gen Zs are a hot topic, but nobody's really talking about millennials. But there's still this whole body of work there. People are
Mm.
less inclined to click into the millennial one and more inclined to talk about how to lead into the future of work. And so everything is priced the same, but I add more effort, to the one I want people to book than the other ones who might. It's just, and again, I just got this feeling that meeting planners often they know that they like something and they know that they don't like something, but they don't necessarily know why. Something just doesn't feel right. You hear it all the time. You see speaking reels like, that didn't really land with me. I can't really put my thumb on it. I bet we could, we can put our thumb on it. We've been watching enough of these things, but
Mm.
I think that what I want people to do is to choose the one that I put the most effort into, and that's the one I want people to book.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, Catherine. And then I don't know if we'll have time for another one, but somebody go ahead and throw your hand up or put it in the chat if you have a question to end with. But go ahead, Catherine.
So I'm back. Um,
I love
so, um, Eric, with getting the bigger name gigs, like let's say the big box companies, if you can recall when that started happening for you, how did you get those opportunities? Was it direct outreach? Did you know someone within the company? Did you get referred? Like, how did that happen? And then the second part of that is, how do you structure it so that you're then able to tell other people that you spoke for, let's say, that company or use their logo? Is that part of your speaker contract?
Yeah, I've maybe had five companies, not even, who have said you can't use the logo or can't use like that is so rare for me. So I don't really haven't really done that. I would
Is
also
it part
say,
of, is it, but you ask permission through your contract, or like or you just use it until they tell you not to use it?
why would they tell you not to?
I've had maybe two companies that said they didn't want me to use the logo. Like I could say I worked with them, but
Hmm.
they didn't want they it's obviously they have very tight control over where their logo appears.
Mm. Yeah,
So,
sure. That might happen. There's probably nothing you could do to get around that then if that's the case.
but I didn't
But
know if it was something like you just have it as a boilerplate language in your speaker contract, or like how you
look,
even,
if
is it
somebody
like a
is
formal conversation you have?
if somebody's spending the money to put you on their stage, I would think that there's a level of pride that they have that you're there in the first place. And I'm so I'm trying to think too. I'm trying to think of the clients that I've had, and like they're the ones who are marketing this stuff. Can't wait to have Catherine, speak at our event in Denver next year. It's going to be great. I repost most things and leverage it from there. I will say though that the big companies and the big logos and things like that, they all started in a breakout room. They all started on a smaller stage and worked up from there. And I would just say that the more we have, I've really stopped caring about logos and clients because if our goal is to make an impact, if our goal is to make a difference for the audience in front of us, two things don't matter. Number one, what the audience or what the client paid you doesn't matter. And number two, what the logo says doesn't matter. And so the funny thing about this, and Steve and I have been talking about this, is that if you can nail it for a $5,000 audience or a $3,000 audience and you get a standing ovation or people are really excited, they don't know how much you got paid. And if you can nail it for a $3,000 audience, you can nail it for a $30,000 audience. Honestly, it does not matter. People are people and they're looking for the same experience. Everything else is just brand. Everything else is just brand and positioning. And so nail it for the $3,000 audience, get the spin, get the referral, get the positive feedback, get the testimonials, grow the business from there. And you're going to find yourself on the stages, not because you aspired to be on Walmart stage or John Deere stage, which those are going to come too, but because you kept doing great work for the people that are sitting in front of you that have no idea how much was spent on you, that all gain something from the great work that you did for those 60 minutes.
Well, it makes perfect sense. Where my mind goes, though, is there are some people who want to see that social proof. And obviously, if you have certain logos on your website, it's sort of like they've already answered some of their own questions. And I've worked with a few companies that whether it's NDAs or other reasons, they would prefer that, because like you were saying earlier, they don't necessarily want people to know that they feel they have a leadership problem.
Yep.
And so if they know that I come in and speak on leadership, they don't always want to be connected with that, or at least outside of their own organization. So I I'm very protective of making sure that I don't use logos, particularly unless I have very explicit consent to do so.
Sure.
But that also factors into decision making on behalf of other companies, whether or not they would even think to bring me in, because it they don't know that I've spoken for these places. So
I think my shortest piece of advice would be, even if you're solving a problem, a glaring problem, I would talk about it with the client and say, let's market this as an aspirational
sure.
solution so that we can be proud of the work that we're doing and not pretending that we're fixing something that's broken.
Yeah.
All right. I know, Eric, you got a top of the hour. Real quick, Shola, do you want to try to give a quick 15-second question?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Sorry, my picture's not online. I'm in the UK and it's nighttime, so I'm in my pajamas right now. But I've really enjoyed everything so far. I used to speak about empathy, and this was through COVID, and I got a lot of bookings because that was a really hot topic at the time. And more recently, I've just kind of started to change my topic, and I'm now talking about what I call emotional audacity. And I think because empathy is something people can really get their heads around, I was finding the bookings came in, I was doing really well. With this change of topic, although it's quite related, I'm struggling a little bit, and finding that some of the bookings have dropped off. So when somebody kind of does that transition, I know you talked about the 1% each time. Maybe I kind of went too far. And instead of doing 1%, I did like 15 or 20. But what advice would you give somebody who's kind of in that position?
And Eric, I know you got to
So
run, so 5 seconds is fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
sorry,
So,
sorry.
Yeah,
Shola,
no.
what's it called? What are you working on right
Um,
now?
Emotional audacity. So it's kind
Okay,
of like
so
emotional intelligence plus courage and boldness.
okay, so respectfully, people aren't asking for that, but also that doesn't mean they need it. So find the every person language that emotional audacity says, and then introduce them to emotional audacity after you've met them where they're at. Sounds like
Mm.
an incredible topic. And if people don't know that they need it, it's going to be hard to book. So meet them where they're at, and then go in from there. It's called the
Thank you.
Trojan horse method.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna cut it out there for Eric. At least Eric, run, go, do. I put his
Okay.
LinkedIn, connect with him. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate
Take
it.
care, everyone. Connect on LinkedIn. Would love to help in any way that I can. Steve, thanks for the opportunity today. Good luck,
Yep.
everyone.
Take care.
All
And
right.
then
See ya.
for the rest of you guys, yeah, we'll cut it off there too. But I know he had to go top of the hour. He's like, gotta go top of the hour. But I'm like, I'm trying to milk in every possible question I can. So sorry we got rushed. I know I cut some people off. I hate facilitation, but it's just part of the deal. So anyway, I thought that was wonderful. Feel free to reach out to Eric on LinkedIn if you need to reach out to him differently. Reach out to me. Thanks for all the questions. That was super fun. And then just, yeah, shoot me a note. I'm going to run here too, but shoot me a note if you like more of this, less of this, whatever, if this was kind of a good value add for all you folks. But thanks for jumping on here. Sorry, I got to run too. The recording will be up pretty soon.
Thanks, Steve.
See y'all. Bye-bye.